Welcome back to Voices of Calm and part 2 of Nonsense and Sense, a tribute to Gertrude Stein by Denis Daly. In Yugoslavia, they hate comparisons. That is, it is said that they hate comparisons. I'm starting over right now. In Yugoslavia, they hate comparisons. That is, it is said in Yugoslavia that they hate comparisons. The people of Kansas City do not understand comparisons. Because they are in Kansas City, they do not understand. However, one cannot be sure that if they were somewhere else, they would understand. Understanding, or comparisons, or sense, or nonsense, or the difference between things that are different and things that are the same. To be different, one does not always have to want to be different. If one tries to be the same, that sameness will not always be perceived as being the same by others. I knew a woman who had 3 cats. One day I visited her and saw 4 cats in her living room. But I knew that she was the same. While I was there, the man came to clean the windows. I knew he was different because I could see that he had trouble understanding the presence of 4 cats. He seemed to want to say that it was not right, that the extra cat did not make the situation better. He did not say it, probably because I was there. People do not like to speak when I am present. 7 months and 4 days later, I strode into the street. To say later does not preclude lateness, but it does not mean that I was late, or early, for that matter. In this case, the sense of my entering the street after the events which went before does not help the meaning. Here, the street is important. My entering the street and my entering the street later could be important, but it is not nearly as important as the street itself. Of course, everything that involves me has significance, but the street has priority because it allowed me to enter it, or failed to prevent me from entering it. Sameness is apparent here, even to people from Kansas City. The street looked the same, but the sameness did not make sense, or rather it made less sense than it had previously. That is what I thought at the time. I put on my hat and started walking. I did not walk as sensible people do, but I walked. Suddenly I realized that the street was different. I looked for the nature of the difference, but I could not find it. I did not look for the difference itself because that would have been the same as looking at the difference before. I knew I had looked for differences before. To do this, I was trapped in sameness. To be trapped in sameness is all right for the milkman, the dog catcher, or the man from Yugoslavia, but not for me. The milkman might walk down the street 20 times and think nothing of it. He could think merely nothing or nothing of being in the street. He had choices. Because he would not think of taking a choice, he would be trapped in sameness. This is not the same as being trapped. A rat may be trapped, but not trapped in sameness. One may ask what would happen if a rat from Yugoslavia and a man from Yugoslavia walked down the street together. The fact of their togetherness may be questioned, but the street would not lose its position or its meaning. The meaning of the street would be the same to the street, regardless of the number or the type of people that walk along it. The street clings to the sameness in the same way that the rat might cling to the trousers of the man from Yugoslavia. If the rat were wearing trousers, the situation would be different. Not the same, but different. The rat would have 2 pairs of trousers to worry about. And rats, it is said, like to worry. Vulgar people might start to think of whether the man from Yugoslavia owned the rat. This thinking would be futile because it would be hard to prove whether the rat knew it was owned. by the man from Yugoslavia, or the tram driver from Kumamoto, or the man who serves coffee in the third shop from the left when one enters the square at Montmartre. The rat would be the same, and that would be the end of the question. Some people like questions, and some like croissants with Neuchâtel cheese and treacle. Some people even like molasses. Sense does not matter here. People will like what people like. They will like the fact of their liking, and the fact of their liking what they like. One should not judge except when one is required to judge. Judging makes use of sense, and judging makes use of nonsense. But this does not make the judging different from itself or what brought it about. Judging and liking are like the rat from Yugoslavia and the rat from Kansas City. Whatever the difference between them, the trouser leg will remain the same. We have come some way. But this does not mean that stupidity has been avoided. Stupidity can be the avoidance of stupidity plain, or the stupid avoidance of stupidity. Even on a Tuesday, there can be some stupidity. Somewhere in the world. One might have to burrow to find it, but the fact of not finding it does not have special meaning. The man with two hats may find the rat from Yugoslavia in the mouth of the dog of the window cleaner who worked for the woman with 3 cats. The finding by the window cleaner that once there were 4 cats in the woman's living room may confuse the window cleaner, but it should not confuse us who see clearly. Some might suggest that the problem faced by the window cleaner when he saw 4 cats could be solved by his finding the rat from Yugoslavia in the mouth of the dog. Suggestions like this deserve to be washed into the sewers of Kansas City, which has the most pleasing sewers in the nation. The president has said so. What the president said is not what the president says, nor is it what he will say. For the president, in words, thoughts, or garters, cannot be the same. He has to remain different. Whether sense or nonsense is in his words, thoughts, or garters, he has to be what he is held to be. That is not the same as being himself. The president is not an Irishman. The president should not be laughed at. Even if he visits Kansas City, he should not be laughed at. The hat must be placed where people will not laugh. This is both sense and sensible. If I wear a dress, I appear sensible. If I wear a hat, I appear dangerous. The president may not wear a hat. If the hat were too large, he might be confused with the rat from Yugoslavia. If it were too small, people could think or be seen to think that the president could not spell. Here is here, and that is where people will find the president. Whomsoever else they find here or there, of where it does not matter, does not matter. The subject is closed. But I do what I like. And I like what I like. And I like doing what I like doing. The argument is complete. Therefore, I may wear a hat. What I am and who I am cannot be deduced. What I am and who I am cannot be deduced from the hat. By no means may meaning be wrested from the hat, or the wearing of it, or the not wearing of it, or the little pink ribbon on the side. My hat is what my hat is. But this does not mean that the hat has sameness, sense, or interest. The glory of the hat is in the wearing of it. or the possibility that it may be worn. That glory is of itself glory. The hat is not part of the glory, but the wearing of it can be glorious. The meaning of this glory is fairly clear. At least to those to whom things are clear will the meaning be clear. The hat will also be clear, and the meaning of the hat will be clear. Clarity and being clear are here the same as and not different from clearness. Clarity and being clear are here the same as and not different from clearness. Nevertheless, meaning cannot be extracted from the hat, even if all other things are clear. Even in spite of this clarity, there may be complications. Complications are not good in that they are sometimes wanted and sometimes not wanted. When they are wanted, their being good depends on who wants them. When they are not wanted, they are not wanted. Therefore, they do not please most people, even people whose business it is to be pleased. A rat or an elephant or even a plumber from Kansas City may be pleased, but that pleasure will have nothing to do with complications. It may have to do with sense, nonsense, difference, sameness, Tuesday, or the president, but complications will not enter into the process unless I let them. As I speak with few, this rarely happens. As I allow few to speak with me, some may say that it is difficult for others to speak to me. The difficulty should not be permitted. Those who speak with me both speak and speak with me. Those who speak but not to me do not speak to me. Therefore, the speaking is not hindered, but the direction may be limited. I will have nothing to do with limitations, as I admit to having none. But others are not like me. I think that the question of likeness with oneself must be addressed. Oneself is one's self and does not belong to anybody else. Ownership of the self is unlikely, as everyone has a self which is distinct. To be themselves, people must have selves. The people in Kansas City would not be known without their selves, even though they come from Kansas City. Both the people and their selves come from Kansas City. It is problematic that one could come from one place and one's self come from another place. One's self is only known by its association with one. I am me and also myself. Others must recognize this fact. This recognition is important for all concerned, for all are concerned, whether they themselves have any importance. Having recognized me as being both myself and important, they are closer to a proper understanding of things. Most important of all, they will come to recognize that they are not like me, that although they have some understanding, they do not have my understanding, that their importance is not the same as my importance, that my wearing a hat or my observing the rat from Yugoslavia or my associating with the president does not give others the right to do likewise. There are many in Kansas City who do not understand what they may do and what they may not do. One sees people in Kansas City wearing hats and talking of the president without any understanding. They understand neither the fact nor the nature of their lack of understanding. Much damage can be done by the thoughtless. But I am not thoughtless. I have thoughts and I have the power to think things through with power like an elephant smashing a jam tart. Others may think, but not with this power. They may think that their thoughts both matter and have matter, but this shows a lack of understanding. To understand sense and nonsense and the sameness and difference which join them, and the complications which then occur, is not something the people of Melbourne, Vladivostok, or Moose Jaw can do often. To do things often is to do them. Often. Often may mean that a single person does something frequently, or a large number of people in one place do something occasionally. However, the effect is not the same. Only those who can distinguish between sameness, and different sameness will appreciate the difference. It is a wide difference, as wide as the difference between being original and being George. To be George, one has to be the same as others who are known to George, and to the degree that a person may be said to be definitely George and not George. If one is not George, one is not George, and little more need be said. If one is George, people may be of the opinion that George is George, or George is said to be George. To make the difference, one needs reliable witnesses. But to be original is different. Different is not the same as being George or not being George, or being said to be George or being said not to be George, or not being said to be George. If one is original, one may be original, or one may be said to be original. These things are the same. To say a person is original is like sweeping up the dust in a dustpan, but not throwing it out. But one could not easily sweep George, or those who said to be George, up in the same dustpan, or any other dustpan. Even the window cleaner, who was disturbed by the sight of 4 cats in the living room of the house of my acquaintance, would balk at such a thing. The dispersion of large numbers of Georges is not proper or original. Therefore, one should be careful when another says, "There is George," or "Hello, George," or "How original, George." These statements are both foolish and dangerous. I can avoid danger, or I can choose not to avoid danger. No penalty will apply in either case. This is not to say that people from Kansas City or rats from Yugoslavia have the same choice, for I am different. Even were I from Kansas City, which I am definitely not, I would not be like other people from Kansas City. The fact of my coming from Kansas City or Melbourne or Yugoslavia or Moose Jaw would not be important. But it would be important for other people who came from such places because they are different. That is, different in ways which makes them different, but not important, or which prevents them from being the same. Here, being the same means, and has the meaning of being drenched in sameness, which is not the same as merely being the same. I understand danger, and there is danger in sameness, and being the same, and difference, and complications, and Irishmen, and igloos. Others do not share this understanding. There is foolishness and foolishness and foolishness. There is Monday, and there is Tuesday, and again Tuesday, and Tuesday again. There is Melbourne, and there is Walla Walla, Washington, and there is Mendelssohn, and there is Tallulah Bankhead. Much goes on and is going on. The going on is going on, and the goings on are going on. Ongoing and going on. There are people who smoke in igloos, and there are people who throw cigars at chimpanzees. There are Irishmen and people who cannot spell, and Irishmen who cannot spell, and there are Irish spellers who are not men, Irish men, Irishmen, or men. It is wonderful to be exact. It is wonderful to be like me. I can cook an omelet while looking out the window. I can cook an omelet. I say I can cook an omelet. All talk about Alice B. Toklas and Eleanor Roosevelt doing my cooking cannot be sustained. I say I cooked an omelet, and Jean Tunney ate the omelet. The conception of the omelet was mine. That is the conception of its creation and its consumption. Alice merely turned the stove on and mixed the ingredients and put them in the saucepan and took them out again and put the omelet on the plate and garnished it with salad and presented it to Jean Tunney and washed the dishes after he had eaten. The true effort, the true creative effort, was mine. But few understood this because few were capable of understanding it and of understanding. Understanding is understanding. It is not foolishness or sameness or sense or nonsense or Tuesday or a taxi in Havana. It is not it because many claim to have it. To be like me is to approach understanding, and to be me is to understand. Therefore, everything I have said to stay and be remembered. This result is at least mildly acceptable. All should take note of what I say and what I write and what errors I write. Saying is delivering what has to be said. I have spoken, and what I have spoken has been said. Let this not be forgotten. And pass the mustard quickly before I speak further. The end. That was Nonsense and Sense, a tribute to Gertrude Stein, written by Denis Daly.